This is Coats87, and I'll be demonstrating how to play games from GOG and Epic with the Heroic Games Launcher on Linux. I'm a big fan of DRM-free gaming and a big fan of GOG. GOG has an optional client called GOG Galaxy, but said client is only available on Windows and Mac. I could use Wine to run all of my games through the GOG Galaxy client, but that would be a very bad idea. Enter the Heroic Games Launcher, a client that is available on Windows and Linux that allows you to use most of the neat features of GOG Galaxy, including online play, cloud saves, and even achievements. This client also supports Amazon Games and the Epic Games Store. Anyway, let's head to Heroic's website. Head to the Downloads page. Currently, there are three ways to get Heroic on Linux. We can get the Flatpak version, a system package, or as an image. While Flatpaks are the simplest way to install Heroic without worrying about dependencies, managing permissions needed for a Flatpak can be an issue for this program. Specifically, I found the Flatpak version to be a bit annoying for when I want to use Mango HUD. Also, the Flatpak version doesn't support system wine, which could be a problem if you want to play the 2007 version of Crysis, even though I recommend the remastered version of Crysis. While I prefer using the system package version for my personal use, we'll be using the AppImage version for this video. By default, the AppImage is downloading to my Downloads folder. Before we check out the AppImage file we downloaded, let's take a look at the GitHub page for Heroic. On the GitHub page, it goes over the current available features for the Heroic Games Launcher client. It also mentions how to install the system package version of Heroic if that's what you prefer. You can head to the releases link for the latest release of Heroic. For those on OpenSUSE or Fedora-based Linux distros, like Nobara Linux or Ultramarine Linux or Fedora, use the .rpm package. For those on Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pika OS, Pop OS, or other Debian/Ubuntu-based Linux distros, use the .deb package. And users that are on Arch-based distros, such as Arch, Banjaro, or Endeavor OS, they can use the .pacman package. Note that immutable distros like Steam OS or Bazite don't support system packages. In the Downloads folder, we see the Heroic AppImage file that we downloaded. While unnecessary, I'm going to rename the file to something much smaller. As with all AppImage files, make sure to right-click on the file, select Properties, and click on the Permissions tab. Then click on the Allow Executing File as Program checkbox. After that, I'll move the file into a different folder. For me, I'll create a heroic folder for the file. Now double-click on the file to start up heroic. Since I previously set my GOG account on heroic, it immediately tries to fetch my entire library. Now let's try installing a game straight from heroic. For this example, I'll be using Mega Dimension Neptunia VIIR. For the sake of brevity, I'll be referring to this game as VIIR. During installation, you want to expand the Show Wine settings. The install path is where the actual game will be installed at. If there's any DLC, you'll be able to select them here. The wine prefix will be where all of the Windows files and folders will be stored. This is needed for Windows games in order to run on Linux. Generally, I like to have my games installed inside my wine prefix, but for the sake of brevity, I'll stick with what Heroic set up for me. In this example, I went with wine default, often referred as system wine, as my wine runner. While system wine does work with this game, if you are using the Flatpak version of Heroic, that option won't be available. I'll show off how to change your runner for this game later in the video. When you are ready, click on the Install button. This will take a while. It's finally done installing. This is the Wine Manager section. This section will allow you to download different versions of Proton GE and Wine GE. For most games, the newest version of Proton GE will work just fine, but there are certain cases, like with Fairy Fencer F, where a specific version of Proton GE is strongly recommended. In Fairy Fencer's case, you want to use Proton GE 9-11. For this video, I'll just download GE Proton 10-27. Then there is the Wine GE tab. Most of the time, I wouldn't bother with this, but I did need to use Wine GE for a few cases, such as with the 2010 version of Alan Wake. Just for fun, I'll download Wine-GE Proton 8-26. Do know that these runners do take up a fair bit of disk space. After installing VIIR, I've switched to using Proton GE 10-27. First, on the other tab, you want to use Game Mode, otherwise known as Feral Game Mode. Without this, there will be graphical issues with this game. For the sake of capturing the performance, I'll be using Mango HUD. Note that using the Flatpak version of Heroic will make it much harder to use this feature. Then on the Advanced tab, scroll down all the way to the Environmental Variables section and add this variable. Wine, alert, simulate, schedule, quantum equals 1. For most games, this variable isn't necessary, but without it, this game and Death End Request will have severe performance issues on Linux when using Proton GE. While not needed for this game, it wouldn't be a bad idea to use the following environmental variable, pulse latency MSEC, with the value of 50. It's similar to Lutris's reduced pulse audio latency toggle, but that setting uses the value of 60. That value may be a bit too aggressive for certain games, such as Convergence, a League of Legends story. Next up is the Game Scope tab. This will be completely unnecessary for VIIR, but may be useful for other games. First, you want to figure out an upscaler option that works best for you. The current options are AMD FSR, NVIDIA Image Scale, Integer Upscale, and Stretch Image. I went with the Integer Upscale, but I recommend looking into this on your own. Next, we want to set the max game width and height. This will determine the max resolution the game will see when running. For me, I'll set it to 1920 by 1080. I did the same for the upscaling width and height. Next is the window type. This should be self-explanatory, but for those not in the know, Windows will show the game in a window that includes the title bar. For an example, the Heroic Games Launcher program is currently in a window. Borderless is the same as Windows, but without the title bar. Full screen is, well, in full screen. This is the setting I use for capturing my game footage. Last but not least, there is the Enable FPS Limiter. This feature is handy for when a game doesn't come with VSync, or worse, have broken VSync like in Dead Space 1 and 2. Remember when some people suggest using the NVIDIA control panel or the AMD equivalent to force VSync for a game on Windows? Well, think of this setting as the Linux equivalent to using NVIDIA control panel to force VSync on a game. With that out of the way, I set my FPS to 60 since that is the max frame rate my Steam Deck supports. Now I'll try to fire this game up and see how it runs. The frame rate isn't the best for this game on the Steam Deck, but at least it looks okay and the frame rate isn't running at single digit. Now, I'll try adjusting some of the settings to eke out a bit more performance. For those wondering, it seems that the post-processing setting is the most demanding setting for VIIR. It has a bit of a different look to the game, but it still looks okay. Now let's try exiting the game. A few games on Linux do have some problems when exiting. Now let's try adding a native Linux game on Heroic. For this example, I'll be using Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. Seriously, this is a great game. To download the install files for this game, select the game from your collection on GOG's website. If this game has multiple versions besides Windows, such as Linux, select the version you prefer. This will show all of the files to download for this game, including any DLC. Click on the game's name here to download the Linux version of the game. Do the same for any DLC. Like with AppImage files, you'll need to make sure that the shell script files have the allow executing file as a program checkbox checked. When you are ready, double-click on the sh file to install Shovel Knight. Some of the buttons look kind of weird due to the theming on Nobara Linux. I'll just click on the next button to continue the installation. Click the next button again. Accept the ULA. Here's where you can set where the game is installed on your computer. Unlike with Windows, Linux doesn't have a way for the GOG shell script installer to remember where you install a game, which will be important to know when installing DLC for games like Crosscode. For Shovel Knight's case, that won't be an issue since I won't need to install any separate DLC for the game. After you are done choosing a directory to install the game in, click on the Next button. Here, you can choose if you want the installer to create a desktop shortcut .desktop file and a menu item. The menu item will appear in the application launcher. Since I'm using the KDE desktop environment, it will appear in the Linux equivalent of the Windows Start menu. I'll leave both options checked and click on the Next button. Now the game will start installing on my Steam Deck. Note the desktop shortcut I have for Shovel Knight. An easy way to figure out where your native Linux game is installed is to open up the desktop shortcut in a text editor. We want to copy the parent directory that Shovel Knight was installed in for later. Let's take a quick look inside of the folder for Shovel Knight. Now let's try adding Shovel Knight into Heroic. Find Shovel Knight on Heroic and click on the Install button. Since this game does have a Linux version, it will select that as the default. There are a few games such as Witcher 2 that I would recommend sticking with the Windows version of. Since we already installed Shovel Knight, we won't be clicking on the Install button. Instead, we will click on the Import button. This is where copying that directory will come in handy. While I could have pasted the directory in this screen, I just selected the directory that the game was installed in. Before we try testing the game, I should mention that Heroic is able to update native Linux games. It can also update Windows games that are connected to your GOG account. Since this is a native Linux game, you won't get options for changing the wine runner. Linux versions of GOG titles don't support cloud syncing at all, since GOG doesn't have an official Linux client. I wasn't really able to go deep into testing Shovel Knight due to me not turning off the lizard mode for the Steam Deck. Now let's talk about side-loading games onto Heroic. While Heroic supports adding games from GOG, the Epic Game Store, and Amazon, it also supports adding games that are not from those places. In this example, I'll be using my copy of Freedom Planet 2 from itch.io. First, I want to copy my Freedom Planet 2 folder to where I want Heroic to see it. I've decided to put that game inside the games/heroic/other games directory. Yes, I copied the name of the folder for Freedom Planet 2 since I'm that lazy. On the library screen, click on the Add Game button. Next, type in the game's name. When you leave the text box for the game name, it will automatically update the cover image for the game. Do note that Heroic doesn't support context menu. That means that you can't paste via right-clicking. Thankfully, keyboard shortcuts still work. I'll be using Ctrl plus V to paste in the text. Next, you'll need to select the version for this game. Since Freedom Planet 2 was only released for Windows, select the Windows option. Next, expand the Show Wine setting. Like with VIIR, you want to choose a directory for your wine prefix. I'll stick with the default for now. Next comes the wine version. I had no issues using Proton GE, so I'll just use the newest one that I have for Heroic. Lastly, we want to select an executable for playing this game. Normally, we want to click on the Run Installer First button to install the game inside the wine prefix. But since this game is portable in the sense that it doesn't need to be installed in order to be playable, we'll just click on the folder icon inside the Select Executable text box. This is the part where you need to know the directory of the game's executable. Select the executable. In Freedom Planet 2's case, the file is called fp2.exe. When you are done, click the Finish button. Like with VIIR, we want to customize some settings for this game before launching it. Mainly, we want to turn on game mode and add the pulse latency MSEC environmental variable. Now we are ready to try out Freedom Planet 2. Now, you are probably sick and tired of manually setting your settings for each game. Thankfully, we can set a series of defaults in the settings section. Go to Game Defaults under Settings. This is where you can set defaults for things like your runner, wine version, location for your wine prefix, environmental variables, and more. Now, those settings will automatically be set for any future games we try to install. Now, let's try installing Cuphead. Unlike with VIIR, I'll be installing Cuphead in a different way. We'll be using the offline installer files to install Cuphead. To download the install files for this game, select the game from your collection on GOG's website. Then click on the Download Offline Backup Game Installer link. This will show all of the parts of the game to install, including any DLC. For Windows games, they are broken up into 4 GB files each. You should be able to ignore the patch files. Click on each part to download the offline installer files. I'll take note of the wine prefix Heroic will try to set for Cuphead from my GOG account. Next, I'll go back to the library section and click on the Add Game button. Add the title name. Note the path for the wine prefix. We will come back to that later. Next, I'll click on the Run Installer First button. This is where I need to find the installer file, the exe file for Cuphead. Since Cuphead has multiple files for installing the base game, make sure that all of the files are in the same directory, specifically the exe and .bin files. Here, I'll copy the path for the installer file. Now, I'll go through the normal installation process. I kind of forgot to install the DLC for Cuphead. We will revisit that later in the video. Then I close this window without adding the game. After that, I select Cuphead from my GOG library and click on the Install button. Since the wine prefix is the same as the one I created earlier, I won't need to change it. Unlike with VIIR, I will click on the Import Game button to add the game. Since I've installed the game inside the wine prefix, I have to drill down to find the folder where the game is installed in. For those wondering, the default directory for a GOG title to be installed inside of a wine prefix will look like the following above. Now the game is installed. Let's try it out.
his pal, but man, they like to roll the dice. By chance they came on Devil's Game, and gosh, they paid the price. Paid the price. And now they're fighting.
Now let's try installing the DLC for Cuphead. Click on the three dots button and select the Modify Installation button. On this screen, you can set your game to use a beta channel if one is available. Like with GOG Galaxy, you can force your game to be a specific version. On the DLC tab, you can select what DLC you want to be installed. I'll install this DLC here. You can also install the DLC by clicking on the hamburger button. It is the one with the 3 lines. Then click on the Run EXE on Prefix button. This button works just like the Run Installer First button. Here, you can set your cloud save settings. Most of this should be self-explanatory. Now let's try Cuphead again. As we can see, the DLC is installed. Now let's try installing a game from the Epic Games Store. First thing we will need to do is click on the Manage Account. You'll notice that there are options for signing into your GOG, Epic, and Amazon account. As you can see, I'm already signed into my GOG account. Click on the Epic Games login. If you have an Epic Games account, type in your email and password. For obvious reasons, I'll be blurring out my credentials. Now I'll try to install Axiom Verge. It's a pretty good game. And before you ask, yes, Axiom Verge is DRM free. Let's start up the game.